Okay, so my name is Sofia, and
My name is Hampus.
we're from Blivande, situated in Stockholm, and we're here to talk to you about what we do and how we use temporary architecture into creating in meanwhile spaces. Is there like a Can you show me how I do? Okay, I will learn. So this is Stockholm from above. And the pink spot is where we're located. It's called Norra Djurgårdsstaden. It's called...
The Royal Seaport of Stockholm is the...
Yeah, it's
English.
a large urban development area. And it looks like this from another angle. It's divided into 4 zones. This area is already people living in. And there's the area in the back there. This is where we are. And it's one of Europe's largest urban development projects. North.
When it's fully developed, they're looking at 30,000 new places to live.
Yeah, it's 12,000 new apartments, 3,500 new offices. It's big. And this is the free harbor. This is the area where we are at. It's historically a place where you didn't have to pay any tolls. So when you came with goods, you could place them there until they were shipped otherwise. So it has a pretty interesting history to us. And as you see, it's quite industrial area. There's not many other things going on, and it's quite recent that the container harbor was closed down. And the building here in pink, this is where we are. So in this area, we're centered quite central located. So this is our building. It's a 100-year-old building, and in here we have our cultural house. It's about 1,000 square meters.
The house itself is 100 years old, and we have around 100 members divided up over the different floors.
Yeah. And outside the area, there's a parking lot. And this is what it looked like 2019. And this is what it looks like today. So we started to use this space with containers to build a container square. We're calling it Frihamnstorget, and it has a multiple diversity of different types of containers. You can see the gallery here. Yes,
maybe the next slide. So what we want to build here is we want to co-create a village. So we're very inspired by the old model of the village, and as in any village, we want to have a diversity of functions and people all collaborating, creating synergy in between each other. So the whole area is 2,600 square meters. Currently, it consists of 30 containers, but we're looking to double that over the coming years. It's 15 different projects, spanning from like a metal workshop, there's a gallery, there's food places. We'll go into that more in detail. But we're striving to reach this critical creative mass where this place comes alive and there's a genuine community, which is something that is quite rare in Stockholm, which is a city that struggles with segregation, a huge lack of non-commercial spaces. So diversity in all different levels is what we're going for.
We're going to walk you through a little bit of what's inside the containers. So one of them has a fully equipped kitchen. There's a fine dining and performance art restaurant. There's stakeholders that come in and they get their own container and they modify it the way they want. So the person actually has the ownership and they do their own project. This is an example of also how it has double usage. And right now was just we have a digital forum, and then there popped up like, hey, I'm the new girl that's producing sausage in this container. And I'm like, okay, I work with development of this place. I had no idea you were producing sausage in this container. So things are popping up all the time.
And it's also a necessity, like the multi-purpose use of space is something we're having to do and experiment around, innovate around from day one because of the prices in Stockholm. We really have to make sure that each space is used basically 24/7. So this is really a force for creativity, where we need to make that happen. And yeah, like I just shortly mentioned here, like in any project like this, you need to work with reasons to come, to how to attract the public or the attendants, but also reasons to stay. You know, if someone comes to a space and there's no toilet, you know, there's a matter of time before they need to leave to take care of their basic needs. And the same thing with having something to drink or having something to eat or having something that triggers your imagination. So this is really something that is important to think about. Yeah, next slide.
We also have small-scale production inside the containers. This is an example of oyster mushrooms. So there's basically a startup that is now selling mushrooms to fine restaurants all over Stockholm. We also recently had a woman moving in. She's going to start a line of a hibiscus drink. It's a very Jamaican traditional drink that she's going to produce from the square. And there's also synergies that arise between the bars and the restaurants and at the square.
One of the core things we want to achieve with this project is to solve the widespread problem in Stockholm of the lack of spaces for artists to work. Like I mentioned, it's a very expensive city. There's a huge demand for these spaces, and by providing a space built around containers and modules, we can really push the prices down for how to operate this. Also, in doing so, providing them an opportunity to also move these places to a future location if or when we need to do that.
We're also combining this with having space for small-scale industry. As you know, there's noise coming out from this, and there's also noise coming out from cultural activity, and there's also noise coming out from a harbor. So we're trying to see this positively and act with noise as something that is actually beneficial. And we have a metal workshop that is doing like large construction. It can also be used for artworks. We have carpenters, we have electricians, and this also comes down to what Hampus has said about building a village. Like we need to be able to build the village, we also need expertise right on hand, right? So we need food, we need someone that can do the plumbing, you know, we need all these aspects.
It's also about unlocking sort of opportunities, but also lifestyles, again, connected to the economical reality of the city. So by exchanging services, by helping each other, we can really get costs down and thus enable things that wouldn't otherwise be possible. Yeah, and so to attract an audience, we of course need to be able to provide services such as bars. So this is just one example. This is Sasha Wine Bar, organized by 3 friends, and they moved in earlier this year, so it's one of our newest residents. We also have another bar called Muddled, and these establishments also work closely in collaboration with us around, for example, you know, making themselves rentable for private, smaller events, or they're in collaboration with us when we organize a public festival, or we run our official culture program, or host corporate events.
Since we're located in an area where people don't pass by, the cultural program is really important for us to start to create a vivid environment. So this year we worked with these. We have a circus program, an outdoor cinema program, and they all intertwine into the official program. And yeah.
We also host multiple social initiatives. So the ones mentioned here is Alla ska få mat is translated to everyone shall have food. So this is a group that gathers excess ingredients from supermarkets and restaurants, and then they prepare them and hand out hot food to homeless people and so on in the city. Sop and Swag is what the picture on the left. You can see that this what do you call it, like a flea market kind of thing. You give clothing, you can get clothing, and food sharing is similar to the first project mentioned.
We're also renting out the venue, the outdoor venue, to corporate events, and like this is how we also make a bit of money. So there's the corporate events, there's club events, there's gathering, communal activities. We also have urban farming, which has been something that we really want to do, like small-scale food production for the community. So we have a lot of pallets that we're working out from. And we're actually building a greenhouse out of a container right now.
Yeah, so this is just to sort of summarize. We already touched upon it a bit earlier, but really, yeah, how do you build a community? How do you build a village? And how do you capture and nurture the synergies that happens in between things? It's really like the arrows here is really what it's all about. Not any of these things in isolation. So we've talked mainly about what we're doing and how it looks and so on, but this is a bit of the why. So yeah, we believe this platform or these platforms, because it's really multiple platforms, are prototypes for the future. We're prototyping components of the future as we would like to see it. It's also a place where we can channel all of the anxiety and the negative energy connected to the huge challenges we face as humanity over the coming decades. And this is a platform where we can channel that energy into action, to work with active hope, in a sense, and have a place where we can be open about such things such as collective grief, confusion of the times. And it's really like an iterative approach. We, inspired by evolution, we really think that we need to work iteratively. We need to move away from the planning paradigm that has been so dominant over the last 100 years in our society. Because it's really hard to predict the future, so let's not try to do it too much.
As I said, we're working with temporary architecture. And it also comes down to our roots in the participatory culture, because how can we take part in creating the city? And working with modular methods is like working with Legos, right? And people can own their own space, which also increase the ownership, and both the ownership of the actual container, but also increase the ownership of the area. We have an ongoing project with Sweden's Innovation Agency, where we're also thinking about like how can we upgrade the artist's role in gentrification, also by using the modular methods. Because as you all know, the story goes like you get into a abandoned building and you build up some kind of cultural value, and then you get kicked out, and then there's like a real estate agent that makes a lot of money of the cultural value that you've created, and this is not working. It's working for some, but it's not working. It's not circular. So we're trying to see if we use modular methods, how can we change the role of the artist, and we can also rearrange and not get kicked out in the same way that as we were used in building. So this is a experimental ground, and we're learning as we go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. Since this is a harbor area, and it's very central, located in Stockholm, but it's still outside detailed planned area, and that gives us a legal gray zone. So when we started building, we could just basically go into the container arrived, and we could say like, okay, seems to be a good spot, and we could place it there. It was very organic and iterative working method for us. And it was in a close dialogue with the harbor. As it's been a container harbor and we worked with containers, the understanding was that we didn't need a build permit for this. At least that's what the harbor told us. But since this is in a development area, also the land was sold to another part of the municipality, which made us have an encounter with bureaucracy and technology.
Maybe aim it there.
Where am I even pointing it?
In the meantime, I can just say that how we got the opportunity to do this project was that the harbor was celebrating a 100-year anniversary. They wanted to invite the whole city to come there, but they didn't have a gathering point, like one place where we could host thousands of people. There was this empty parking lot. We were invited as a sort of a creative consultant in the planning stages, and we just said, like, we would love to work with containers. We've done it with festivals before and so on. Give us a chance. We can build you this place where you can gather all these people, but in return we want to have the opportunity to try it for one year pilot project to build something more permanent. And they said yes to that. And we got a minimal budget and we built this place over a few weeks.
Okay, can you help me with the next slide? Okay. Yeah, so our meeting with bureaucracy is first when working with build permits, like temporary build permits that this is. We have a permit now for 5 years. The first hurdle or the first challenge is what is actually temporary. Okay, so if you have a bunch of school kids and you're moving out of the building to a temporary space and then you move them back into the building, you're good to go. If you're in an area where it's supposed to be developed and everything's supposed to be torn down, it's not temporary, by Swedish law at least. So we needed to find a way to define what's temporary about us, since we're actually meeting a permanent need here. So there are needs for artist space, there are needs for everything that we do, there's a permanent need, but we're in a space that's going to be developed. So I'm just going to give you a short recap what the answer was, and it was actually the projects that we had ongoing. Because since we're working with an innovation project where we're using this as a pilot for giving feedback into the plan process for the whole area, that is actually a temporary need. So we got saved by the projects in this case. There was also a problem with accessibility. Like for a long period of time, we had to really argue that the demand on us was that we needed elevators for all the second story. And that was like for months. We had ongoing conversations about like, okay, so installing elevators in this type of projects would actually overrule the budget by several times for the whole project. So it's like we need to find other ways around.
It would have cost us several million euros to comply with conventional rules. So we really had to convince.
In the end, we got exceptions from this, and we have accessibility on the ground floor and to all the public areas, but not to the private studios. There was also a clash for us, and we had to change work method, since everything needs to be pre-planned and specified with specific section and plan and facade drawings. They need to know the impression of the area. They need to know the specific RAL codes for the color of the container that's going to come in 5 years from now, which is very important, which is very hard for us to know. And we had to make assumptions, right? So this is our assumption plan. And it was creating tensions in the community as well, because we were going away from the ethos that we had created the whole space with. When the container comes in and how we organize it is very much a communal work, right? But this had to be done in a very different way. So there was, in the end, we found that there was a line in the budget for the planning office that came from the politician as a mission for them to help make it easier for temporary architecture in development areas. And by that line, there was also a loophole for us to actually get a flexible build permit. And this has not happened in Sweden before, so it's not changing the law, but it's changing how they interpreted the law. Because during this process, it was coming down to us all the time, like, what other examples are there? And there's no other examples. So we are the first example. And you can give me the next slide. Or if I can.
We're like 3 minutes through.
So the flexible build permit is, you see, define the area around. That has specific drawings with plan and section, and basically this was also pretty much already built, the area around. So that's normal. But then we have the area inside here, and that's the flexible area, and it's like a miniature detailed plan. We have a framework that we need to, work with. But outside of that, we can organize the containers as we want. So if there's a dance studio that comes in that wants double 20-footers, we can place them somewhere. If there's another, want 40-footer and then a 20-footer on top and different constellations. Because the plan we had, we actually painted ourselves into a corner. So the actual containers that came in couldn't fit in the space, which was very, very weird to us.
We no longer have to predict the future, let's say.
Exactly. But we still needed some definition for the flexible area, and this is also how to make it bulletproof for overruling, and we still have to go with the law. So this is what they did. They made us do a design basis, which is describing the impression the area has, with the industrial look combined with graffitis and stuff like that. It's also how the placement of windows and doors and balconies and surfaces and stuff. We also have a defined gross floor area, which is about 400 for this area, and a max height of 9 meters. It's 3 stories of containers. There's also some rules about structures and fire safety, and here we had to work really close with the consultants, because they had not like how can we make something work for construction when we don't know what the construction is going to be. But a container is a defined shape. So every time you have the 4 container corners on other container corners, we're good to go. As long as they're slit a little bit, we need supporting structures. So they had to find, so now we have a document of standard solutions where we can go to and work by, and they're all approved. And the same with fire safety. There's also a different of like hard set rules, like from every single point there needs to be 30 meters down to the ground, and there's specific rules for...
We're running out of time. We should
Sorry, I get
wrap it up.
carried away by this. Yeah, this is just a picture to show you.
Yeah, it's sort of the top would indicate business as usual, as probably most of you are aware of. Like whenever an area is going into a transition period, being developed or being changed, the use, there's this long hiatus, this sort of desert walk where nothing but construction happens. It's a closed-off area. Everything is raised to the ground, and the old identity is sort of lost. And this is something that happens all over the world, but more and more, and we're changing the way we look at this. And like, are there alternate ways of doing it? And this is basically what we're experimenting with in our project here. And I'm sure you're doing it here as well. Like, the values are destroyed, and they have to rebuild from scratch. Like, whereas if you work with temporary activations throughout the period with a more flexible mindset, some of the old identities can be transferred to the future, and yeah, this is really a better model, according to us.
How are we with time?
We're gone over time already.
Yeah. So we need to end now, right? Who's keeping? Yeah. So thank you for listening to us.
Thank you.